Hello, I'm Debbie Kay with the League of Women Voters of Portland. You're watching Video Voters Guide. We are at the studios of MetroEast Community Media, interviewing candidates for the November general election. With me today is Ben Souede, who is running for Judge of the Circuit Court of the 4th District, position 30. Thank you, Ben, for joining us today.
Thanks for having me, Debbie.
You're welcome. Why are you running to be a judge?
Well, I've been a Multnomah County Circuit Court judge for a little more than a year. I love this job. I love this work, and I feel like I'm making a contribution. Multnomah County needs judges who work hard, who can work fast, and who can pay attention to the details of cases while keeping an eye on the bigger picture of the system and the volume that we have coming in. I think I've done a good job of all of those things. I found it deeply satisfying, and I'd like to keep doing it.
Good reasons. Can you speak to alternatives to incarceration that you would support for nonviolent crimes?
Sure. I'm a big believer in what we call restorative justice. In Multnomah County and Oregon-wide, it's often referred to as justice reinvestment. What that presents is a shift from the traditional way that our system and our community has dealt with crime. Traditionally, there's been one thing to do when someone is convicted of a crime, and that is punishment. And punishment, as you suggest, often means putting them in a cell. What restorative justice and what justice reinvestment, the places where they come from is from the latest state of the social science and the studies that have looked at these issues. And what those studies suggest is punishment has a place, but it is not the only tool and it is not a sufficient tool to get us where we want to go as a community. Mm-hmm. When we resolve criminal cases, what do we want? We want to protect our community. We want to give justice to the victim. We want to restore the victim, if we can, to the position that they were in before the crime. If they lost money, we want to get the money back to them. And we want to appropriately deal with the defendant while also setting up the defendant to be as successful as possible in future so that that defendant and people like that defendant don't reoffend. Punishment can't accomplish all of that. What justice reinvestment does is it uses punishment as a tool, but it uses other tools as well. So what that means is if a crime is driven by addiction, mm-hmm. if somebody committed ID theft or stole a car or stole from a car because they're feeding an addiction, well, that person needs treatment. And maybe that comes in combination with punishment, but often locking the person up isn't going to make a difference. Providing treatment and the tools for success going forward is going to maximize both community safety and the chance that the defendant will not reoffend. Likewise, in other cases, it may mean closely monitored probation. So we're going to keep an eye on you. We're going to make you keep coming back and stay on the right track. We're going to help you try to find housing, stable housing, and a job. And again, that will maximize success. So I see punishment as a tool, but only one of many that will maximize the chance for good outcomes in criminal cases.
Thank you. Do you believe that the courts should be monitored for unintentional racial bias?
I do. Monitored is a tricky word, particularly when our judges are elected. Who monitors elected officials is sort of a tricky thing. The best way, I think, to combat that sort of implicit bias is through transparency. I think it makes sense to have the kinds of reports that have come out in the last year or two relating to the statistics. How are people of color doing in our system as opposed to people not communities of color? Is one side or the other punished more or less? Mm-hmm. Are women treated when they are parties equally in terms of outcomes? So I think looking at outcomes is a very useful thing. I would welcome actual monitoring. I love when people come to the courthouse and it's their courthouse, it's their justice system, and see what's going on. And if you spend a couple of days, you may get a sense of what is going well and what is not. We are ultimately public servants. Every judge I know is there because they want to do right by the entire community, but we're not perfect. And we all bring our own experiences and biases to it. And yes, I welcome feedback from colleagues, from jurors. I've asked lawyers and parties, how'd I do? Did you feel heard? Yes is the shorter answer to that question.
No, the amplified answer is helpful. What is your vision for the future of Oregon's judicial system?
So there are a couple of things. The first is it's going to have to get bigger. In so many of our counties, the courts are overworked and overrun. Mm-hmm. The legislature in the last legislative session created 2 new judicial positions statewide. That's going to be a trend that continues. That takes money. Mm-hmm. For every judge you authorize. You have to authorize staff in a courtroom, and it makes the system bigger and more expensive. And I think the legislature and the people of Oregon are rightfully a little sensitive to that. But the fact is, justice delayed is justice denied, and it's going to take more judges to do that work. So on the one hand, I think bigger. The other thing that I think is happening now and will continue to happen is that the courts are finally catching up in Oregon to where so much of the rest of our community is with respect to technology. We are now able to move through cases more quickly and more efficiently, and I think more effectively, because we are less paper-based. We still do some things on paper. I do a lot of signing in my day as a judge. I expect and I'm hopeful that the more we move to an electronic system, the more that trend will continue, where we can address cases more fully and more efficiently.
Thank you. I have a sort of a follow-up question.
Sure.
What do you think the people in Multnomah County know least about the judicial system for Multnomah County? What is it you would want people to know?
Two things. The first is just how hard the judges work. We are in the chair just about all day, every day, and that's because we need to be. The demand is there. The second thing is how high a percentage of our cases involve unrepresented parties. That is to say, a case where one or both sides don't have a lawyer. And the real impact that has on our ability to do our job as judges, and also on our ability to understand what's going on and address and resolve cases effectively. It's a significant burden on the parties, of course, to not have a lawyer, and it makes judging well, doing a good job judging, harder. And so,
do they not have representation because they chose not to, or because there aren't enough attorneys available to them at a given price point?
I'm glad you asked. It is the latter. It is because lawyers are expensive. Even cheap lawyers are reasonably expensive, and so many people who are either forced or want to come to the court to seek justice are unable to hire a lawyer because of monetary concerns.
And court appointed?
In criminal cases, yes. Some in the very rare case, civil cases, but particularly, for example, in our family law dockets, domestic relations, dissolutions, divorces, possibly even things involving child custody. So many of the people who come to us looking for help don't have lawyers, and our system is built with the assumption that there will be lawyers. So what I would like people to understand is that we are here and we are working, and we will do our best to assure fairness, both procedurally and substantively, to everyone. But something they should be aware of is that their neighbors and their friends and their relatives may not be well equipped to come into court with all the advantages that having a lawyer brings. And that I don't have a solution for that, but it is a huge dynamic of what happens in the courthouse that I think most people don't know about. Thank
you. We are just about out of time, so you have a few seconds if you want to add something.
This is the first job in my life that is directly proportional. The more I give to it, the more I get out of it. And so I love my colleagues, and they are committed and hardworking. I would love prospective voters to know that I am dedicated to nobody outworks me. Nobody's more excited to have this job. And I really hope for the opportunity to keep doing it.
Thank you very much. This has been the Video Voters Guide. Thank you for watching. The general election is Tuesday, November 6th. The last day to register to vote is October 16th. We urge voters to visit the League of Women Voters of Oregon website, and particularly to go to vote411.org. There you will see a facsimile of your ballot with links to all of the races, both ballot measures and all candidates. Candidates may also upload their own YouTube segments. Please be sure to inform yourself about the candidates and the ballot measures. They can be complicated. Exercise your right to vote and invite your family and friends to do the same. Thank you very much.